Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain and welcome back. Now today I want to talk about free-to-play games. Because obviously I play a fair number of them on the channel here. You know, I play Warframe, I play Paladins, um, and I obviously play a lot of other games as well to one extent or another, both on the channel and off. But I wanted to talk about free to play because obviously there are more and more games that are going free to play to one extent or another, and you've got some really interesting cases that have come out of kind of the recent last few months in regards to their free to play. And obviously, it's one of these things that is incredibly contentious amongst the people that actually play these games. You know, you've got some people that regard free to play or regard kind of limited access purchases to be kind of a lesser gamer, a lesser combatant, a lesser person in the game. And as a result, they will shun them and they will treat them badly and they will refuse to group with them and they will refuse to even communicate with these people, and it gets really kind of taxing. But then also you've got games that really do well with free to play and actually put in a system that is fair and reasonable and actually enriches the game as a result of it being free to play. And so what I want to do is I want to talk about some of the positives of free to play first, then we'll go into the negatives, and then we'll talk about the kind of impact that it has on community, because that's obviously one of these really big things, especially with these games that tend to be very free to play oriented, but also are massively multiplayer or have a large multiplayer or cooperative component to them. And so, to start off with, the positives of free to play. Now, obviously, first off, it being free is great for the general consumer. You know, you can come along, you can try the game out, and if you don't like it, then you can just uninstall it. No problem, no issue. You can just come in, take a look, and if it's not for you, if it's something that doesn't quite mesh with what you want to do or how you want to do it or the games that you like, even if it looked good to begin with, you can just go, okay, fair enough, I can uninstall this, I've not lost anything. Yeah, there are loads of games that I've done that with in the past. There are loads of games that I've been kind of really positive about in the past, where I've then, after playing some of it, put some money towards it, and then unfortunately things have broken down and collapsed otherwise. Um, but it's kind of got this really um, interesting and open way of dealing with potential members of their player base. You've got to have at least some confidence in your game to run it free to play, because if you don't have that confidence in the game, then you're leaving it there for anyone to play, and if they don't like it, then they just uninstall it because they've not invested anything in it. You're not playing on investment bias. You're not having people like in World of Warcraft purely continuing to play the game for so long at times just because they have spent so much money in the game so far that it has to be worth it. Has to be worth it, right? And as a result, they stick around. Even if they're completely sick of the game by the time they kind of get to that point. But other benefits of free to play, it allows for a much more casual experience, which some people don't like, but for the most part is going to help the game grow. It's going to help the game kind of gather more people in who then at some point in the future might become more serious about the game. It doesn't prevent the game being serious or having a serious element of the community just because it allows for casual play. If anything, my thoughts are, in the busy world of today where everyone from adults to children are playing games, the way to develop should be for the smallest number of people first and for the most casual amount of people first, because then anything that they get also gets kind of pushed up to the people who are more serious about it. Obviously, then you run into a problem of that lots of games kind of struggle with a complete lack of end game content, or kind of systems that aren't challenging enough for people who are hardcore and stuff like that. But that's something that you can work out, and there are a few games that do that really well. For example, the ones that I feel do really well with free to play, things like Warframe, yeah, or things arguably like Paladins, where a lot of the things that you can buy with cash from their in-game stores are either cosmetic or they are utility focused. Yeah, and as a result, everything in the Warframe store that isn't cosmetic can be got through playing the game. Yeah, and as a result, it becomes a trade-off between time and money, because time is money. So if you've got people who have a huge amount of time to spend playing the game, then they can still get everything that's mechanically useful in the game, be it a warframe, be it a weapon, be it a new ship, be it whatever. You know, if they've got enough time to spend on it, then they can get it. But if you don't have that amount of time, if you want a very specific thing, if you don't have the kind of ability just to sit around and play the game non-stop to work for that really hard item or something like that, or to level up this new warframe to max ready for this thing to do with your friends, then you can put some money in, and the money will give you XP boosters, or you can buy the warframe straight, or whatever else, you know. And it allows for that kind of, if you're time rich but money poor, then you can play the game and get all of the rewards. If you're money rich but time poor, then you can throw some cash into this experience that you enjoy. You can help support the game grow, or the game's growth rather, and you can help kind of generally develop yourself and the game all in one go. Obviously, then you've got the stuff that doesn't matter: cosmetics, skins, the little noggles that you can put in your ship, pets, stuff like that in all manner of different games, and they tend to be really kind of a relaxed thing. You know, you don't need them. They're there purely if you want them, and if you want them, then you may as well support the game by purchasing them, right? You know, if you're getting this thing that has no real impact on your experience playing the game, other than just going, oh, look at this thing that's following me around, isn't it so cool, I got a baby penguin, or something like that, then, you know, that's entirely up to you, and it's entirely the way that you want to do it. You know, it's allowing you that extra bit of customization, great. But at the same time, it's not impacting you, it's not impacting any other player in the way that you're playing or interacting. And so as a result, then you've got the kind of carry away from that of going, yeah, okay, that's fine. Yeah, it doesn't impact the way you play. It's not pay to win. It's not kind of having you stand out, you know, above and beyond other players in terms of the things you can achieve in the game. And so as a result, yeah, fine. If you want to spend like a couple of quid on a pet or something like that, then go ahead. Another game that admittedly isn't free to play, but kind of follows the buy to play model that does this, that has something like this, is Black Desert Online, where things like character slots, where things like inventory space and utilities and things like that can be got through the game, through just playing. But you can also spend some money on it, but the money that you spend on it is actually quite small. It's in line with a lot of other games. For example, character slots, I believe, are like 5-6 quid, which are again are kind of in line with lots of other games of a similar type. But also, some of the other things that are there are much lower price. But then, if you want to buy something cosmetic, some of the cosmetics in their store are like the same price as the game was at launch. You know, but obviously it's a case of, well, if you really want that cosmetic item, if you aren't happy with the way you look and you really want this thing, you're going to support the game. Yeah? And I'm completely fine with that. If you've got that extra money to throw around, by all means. But again, it doesn't impact me, it doesn't impact the way that you're playing or my playing, my experience, and so it just allows for this kind of cascade of stuff to go. But then let's move on to the bad side of things, and this is where you get games like there are a fair number of shooters that do this. Things like, I think it's Dirty Bomb, that is kind of pay to win due to the fact that if you can get more kind of loot boxes and things like that allow you to get more of the different characters, more of the different weapons, more of the the kind of boosters and things like that, then obviously you're going to get further because you can specialize, you can line your playstyle up. there are others that specifically sell like the top tier games in top tier weapons in the game in the store, and this is actually something that has me a little bit worried about Anthem, the new BioWare kind of multiplayer kind of open world sci-fantasy game. And it worries me because EA, with their kind of track record on this stuff, hasn't been great. They put microtransactions in games that are, I mean, admittedly, Anthem probably won't be free to play, but the kind of pay model that they're using in a lot of cases wouldn't even be acceptable in a free to play game. And so, it worries me a little bit that might go that way. But obviously, the bad of it is that when you put stuff into a microtransaction store that costs real world money, that kind of you can't get through just playing the game, that is far and beyond in terms of kind of weapon power or character kind of specializations and things like that. It's a bit of a problem. I mean, there was Neverwinter early on. If you spent money when you got these chests, then you could buy the keys, open the chests, and in the very first ones, you would get items that were basically top tier items, one step down from top tier items, and you could play the entire game with them because the items would level with you as you went. And as a result, you would get to top tier, and some of the top tier weaponry that you had got from dungeons and things like that still weren't as good as these other weapons. Now, they've stopped doing that now because they kind of seem to realise the error of their ways. And now, at least the very last time that I played Neverwinter, which admittedly was a little while ago, and again, they're updating the game so fast that I'm always playing catch-up when I get back into that game, which is great. But for a free-to-play game to do that, they did it for a limited time, and then they kind of saw maybe the error of their ways, and they increased the things that they were monetizing, the things that they were asking for money for, to one extent or another, as they put more things into their store, and they put more things into the chests, and they added more types of chest and all that kind of thing. But at the same time, they stopped with the whole, here are these weapons in the chest. There might be some weapon skins in there might be some other bits and pieces that you can also get through other areas of the game. Like certain artifacts and things that you could get from a dungeon or you could get from a chest. But they didn't just kind of put these weapons in that were far and beyond anything, but also they didn't remove the weapons that were there anyway because the level cap went up. And so they didn't need to remove those weapons in the long run because the extra 10 levels that they added to the game for progression suddenly meant that those weapons were no longer top tier by a good stretch. And so as a result, you do have the more negative side of kind of free to play where it turns into kind of pay to win or whatever else. The other thing that you have on free to play is, as I said earlier, you've got games that maybe weren't free to play to begin with that then have moved into free to play. Now, there are two big examples that stand out in my mind, both of which because they were games that I was very enthusiastic about and that I still very much enjoy to one extent or another. One of which was Guild Wars 2, that when their Heart of Thorns expansion came out, the main vanilla game went free to play. And then also you've got Battleborn, which happened more recently, whereby half the game, only the PvP kind of arena section of the game, has been made free to play, and the campaign is there for people who pay. Now, there are a couple of issues with this, mostly because you've got a lot of people who have come in and paid potentially full price or more for a game that has then gone free to play, and as a result they feel potentially kind of cheated, because if that thing that is now going free to play, especially when it's also not that old relatively speaking, if you've come along and they're getting that, everyone else is getting that free to play, but you've already put all of this money in, then there's a little bit of dissatisfaction there. Something very much I felt when they did that for Guild Wars 2, because I had put an awful lot of money into that game in various different ways, and like seeing the main game be made free to play when the expansion, which had sod all content in it, relatively speaking, it was a little bit more than one season of their Living World stuff, which is being released completely free. It was kind of a odd issue, but obviously there were lots of people that also felt that way, and there was a kind of an outcry, which meant that then they basically awarded extra character slots, which kind of covered the gap monetarily, but at the same time, what about all those people that didn't care for the character slots? It left a kind of sour taste in the mouth. And the same goes with the Battleborn changes now, because you've had them change things up, and all the people who had already bought the game have been given like some random loot boxes and a little bit of currency that kind of gets you maybe one skin from their premium collection, and then it also provides you a title that says that you're a founder. It's like, no, these people weren't founders. They were people that bought the game to play the whole game, and whether they liked the game, whether they were disappointed by it, whatever else, they have either been faithfully returning at intervals or continually playing for, since the game launched. I've gone back and done the operations and done the other things, tried out the new characters and things like that as I've gone along. I very much enjoy Battleborn. I wish that they had done more with the PvE side of things for that game, because especially considering it came from the guys that made Borderlands, I was really hoping for a lot from that, and I loved the universe, I loved the various characters. It was just a shame that they didn't kind of continue with the PvE side of things, where the PvP was kind of meh, and it was, in my view, the same as all of these others. But again, there was a lot of like stalled payoff in that mode. But anyway, I digress. The point is that with the Battleborn thing especially, I paid full price for that game essentially. That was a full price game that then we went and played and loved it very much, but then now we're being told that half of our purchase is being taken away, and we're getting, like, relatively speaking, sod all in regards to recompense. And I'm not the only person that feels that that's a bit dodgy, but at the same time, they're trying to compete, they're trying to make themselves relevant again, and it is a good game. So, there's that kind of element to it, and it's one of those things that game developers are going to have to continue struggling with and fighting with, between kind of keeping yourselves relevant, using free to play kind of effectively and responsibly, and stuff like that. But now that we've talked about the bad, though, with those examples, let's talk about the impact on community, because this is obviously the big thing. Because when a game goes free to play, then, obviously you've got people who are going to not be too happy about it. One of the ones that sticks out in my mind is when Team Fortress 2 went free to play, and now, you do have that division between people like myself who bought the game ages ago, either by itself or as part of the orange box or whatever, who are now coming in and seeing the free-to-play people who don't have as much stuff. But then I actually stopped playing TF2 before a lot of the cosmetic things came in, and so as a result I don't have a lot of the hats or a lot of the other bits and pieces. I jumped in and out and dabbled here and there to do stuff, but as a result, the stereotypes around free-to-plays often, could be rubbed off on me, considering that I don't have any of the crazy cosmetic stuff and whatever else, even if I've got a fairly significant array of weapons to use. And so, it's an interesting kind of set of differences in perception that people have, and the kind of the number of kind of stereotypes that get attached to people based on what they appear to be is also interesting. But the biggest problem with this is that it can help the game. It can really genuinely help any game by having its community expand, by having more new players, more new ideas, more potential people to spend money in the game. Allows for matches to be found more regularly if you're in a PvP based game like TF2 or even Overwatch, Battleborn, whatever. You know, the more people that you have coming into the game, the more people you are likely to have then in your pool to find matches to keep the game alive. You know, that's, you know, incredibly important for these games. But then at the same time, whilst it's good for the community in terms of growth, in terms of new ideas, fresh blood, you know, new players in various different ways, it can be quite a negative experience as well if not handled correctly. Yeah, whereby older players who had already adopted the game, in the case of a game that was buy to play and then has gone free to play, or was subscription based and is now gone free to play, you know, there's going to be some resentment and bitterness potentially. But you also don't want to limit the new players so much that they don't want to play. You know, there are lots of games that spring to mind, like DC Universe Online, or even Star Wars: The Old Republic, whereby if you're playing free to play and not paying a subscription and whatever else, then you know you're very, very limited on certain things, including how high a level your character can get. And so as a result, it's a thing that can harm as much as anything, because you trying to kind of appease the older players who kind of helped you get where you are so far, you know, that can cause a real problem. But then actually providing for players can also be as much of a problem, because then it allows for the older players to leave the game because they feel hard done by. You know, it's a bit of a juggling act of expectations and things that you can give and can't give and all that kind of thing. But then the biggest negative is definitely the way that players will treat other players. Yeah, either it's usually the people that have been playing for a long time not being willing to help out new players, not being willing to help out free to play players, not being willing to interact with them all that much. You know, toxic communities growing up around the idea of, oh well, we paid for it and they're lesser because they didn't. You know, when in the real world you wouldn't just instantly shame people for being poor. Yeah, or you wouldn't instantly jump down someone's throat because they don't have excess cash for a thing, you know, for something that's a luxury. You know, you wouldn't do that, or at least you shouldn't, because if you do, you're an asshole. And so as a result, you know, it just suggests that maybe they've got other priorities, but they still want to play the game. They still want to come in and interact with it. They still want to enrich that environment. They still want to enjoy that environment, in which case, support them in doing so. You know, I'm not saying buy them stuff, but what I am saying is welcome them into the game, because it's only ever going to be a good thing for you. Because if they do spend any money on the game, or if they do at the very least play the game for a decent amount of time, you're going to get more games, you're going to get more matches, you're going to see more development and growth. The devs are going to be able to justify larger expansion of the game to kind of investors and shareholders. You're going to have those who do spend some money on the game over time, kind of again paying into the game, where it's not just you guys that have already paid, it's going to be them that are paying in as well. You know, it allows for that growth and development. And so as a result, the hatred that certain people get just because you're free to play and this person isn't, you know, it's bizarre. And you know, again, some of the ways that I feel are the best ways to do it tend to be by just going, time is money, therefore if you've got time to spend the time. If you don't have time to spend the money. You know, and that's the way that it works out. Because again, in Warframe, for the most part, yeah, you've got some people who are like, I play 12 hours a day, and I even when I'm asleep, I'm dreaming about Warframe. You know, then there's still more. You know, even in direct competition in things like the Conclave or Lunaro, you know, they're not adverse to new players who haven't bought stuff, who don't have a lot of platinum, who, you know, for whatever other reason is stuck there, because there's never been that divide. And if there is that divide, then, you know, games that I can think of that have done it better, that have kind of moved towards free to play, you know, the people that actually, or the games that kind of stand out in that way to an extent. I mean, I could also take Star Wars: The Old Republic as one of those games that did okay as well, because it kind of allowed for people to come into the game and play with their friends who had been playing it for a long time, and as a result, you know, when it went free to play, it brought in that new community. It allowed the older community within the universe to be kind of more mentory kind of individuals if they wanted to be, or they were so far and beyond the new collective that had joined the game, and they were they were moving forward at such an accelerated rate that they didn't have to interact with it, they didn't have to bother with it, it wasn't a problem for them. And so as a result, it's like, whilst I can use Star Wars: The Old Republic as a kind of example of how limits on free-to-play players are a negative thing and probably shouldn't be as significant as they are in a lot of cases, I can also say that it did quite well in its shift to free-to-play, where there were a lot of issues, a lot of kind of moaning from certain players and things like that, but then because of how far along players were and the way that they handled the new player intake, you know, it all panned out relatively well community side. But anyway, let me know what you guys think. You know, free-to-play games, as said, I play a lot of them because they're easy to get into, and if I don't like them, I can get rid of them. You know, you've got games that are coming out that kind of worry me. For example, Fortnite, they made a big thing of them going, oh, we are free-to-play, and then that kind of disappeared when they added their founder packs, just because they seemed to want to get people to buy. You know, they kind of stopped talking about the fact that it was free-to-play and it was going to be open and inclusive, purely to kind of market the money side of things that they wanted. And that kind of worries me for the future, because it worries me about whether or not they'll start doing some shitty stuff in the future. Also, if you actually look at the founder packs, like, personally, they're not really worth the amount that they're asking for money-wise, considering that the game at the moment in its entirety is a kind of unknown quantity. But either way, let me know about your experience with free-to-play games. Let me know which ones you've enjoyed, which ones you think have done well, which ones you think have done absolutely horribly. You know, if you're one of these people like me who's been an early adopter for certain games that have then gone free-to-play, you know, how did that leave you feeling? Did it bother you? Did it not? You know, I'd love to hear all of your thoughts down in the comments. But otherwise, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in my video tomorrow. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video or found it interesting, then please drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the video tomorrow. Take care.